Friedrich Wilhelm August Heinrich Ferdinand Steuben, also referred to as the Baron von Steuben, was a Prussian-born American military officer. He served as Inspector General and Major General of the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War. He is credited with being one of the fathers of the Continental Army in teaching them the essentials of military drills, tactics, and disciplines. He read regulations for the order and discipline of the troops of the United States, the book that served as the standard United States drill manual until the War of 1812. He served as General George Washington's Chief of Staff in the final years of the war. Early life. Baron von Steuben was born in the fortress town of Magdeburg on September 17, 1730, the son of Royal Prussian engineer Captain Baron Wilhelm von Steuben and his wife Elizabeth von Jagdvoden. When his father entered the service of Empress Anna, young Friedrich came with him to the Crimea and then to Kronstadt, staying until the Russia war against the Turks under the General Burkhard Christoph von Munich. In 1740 Steuben's father returned to Prussia and Friedrich was educated in the garrison towns Nice and Breslau by Jesuits. It is said that at age 14 he served as volunteer with his father in one of the campaigns of the War of the Austrian Succession. First military service. Von Steuben joined the Royal Prussian Army at age 17. He served as a second lieutenant during the 7 Years' War and was wounded at the Battle of Prague. He served as adjutant to the Free Battalion of General Johann von Meyer and was promoted to first lieutenant in 1759. In August 1759 he was wounded a second time at the Battle of Kunersdorf. In June 1761, he was appointed deputy quartermaster at the general headquarters. Later that year he was taken prisoner by the Russians at Treptow. Upon his release in 1762, he was promoted to captain and eventually became an aide-de-camp to Frederick the Great. The end of the war and subsequent reduction of the army meant that Steuben was one of many officers who found themselves unemployed. Given von Steuben's exemplary military record, one has to question why this ambitious and competent officer was discharged from the Prussian army in 1763. Towards the end of his life, Steuben indicated that an inconsiderate step and an implacable personal enemy led to his leaving the army. Service in Hohenzollern-Hechingen. In 1764 Steuben became Hofmarschall to 1st Joseph Friedrich Wilhelm of Hohenzollern-Hechingen, a post he held until 1777. In 1769 the Duchess of Württemberg, niece of Frederick the Great, presented him with the Cross of the Order of la Fidelity. In 1771 he was made a baron. That same year he accompanied the Prince to France in 1771, hoping to borrow money. Failing to find funds, they returned to Germany in 1775, deeply in debt. In 1763 Steuben had been formally introduced to the future French Minister of War, Claude Louis, Comte de Saint-Germain in Hamburg. They met again in Paris in 1777. The Count, fully realizing the potential of an officer with Prussian general staff training, introduced him to Benjamin Franklin. Franklin, however, was unable to offer Steuben a rank or pay in the American Army. The Continental Congress had grown tired of foreign mercenaries coming to America and demanding a higher rank and pay. Promoting these men over qualified American officers caused discontent in the ranks. Von Steuben would have to go to America strictly as a volunteer and present himself to Congress. Steuben left these first first meetings in disgust and returned to Prussia. Steuben found waiting for him allegations that he engaged in homosexual relationships with young men while in the service of Prince Joseph Friedrich Wilhelm of Hohenzollern-Hechingen. The allegations were never proven, but Steuben knew they would stymie his chances at an officer's position in Europe. Threatened with prosecution for his alleged homosexuality, Steuben returned to Paris. Rumors followed him from Prussia to America that he was homosexual, but there never was an investigation of von Steuben, and he received a congressional pension after the war. Upon the Count's recommendation, Steuben was introduced to George Washington by means of a letter from Franklin as a lieutenant general in the King of Prussia's service. An exaggeration of his actual credentials that appears to be based on a mistranslation of his service record. He was advanced travel funds and left Europe from Marseille on Friday, September 26, 1777 on board the frigate Flamand. American Revolution. The Baron, his Italian greyhound, Azor, his young aide-de-camp Louis de Pontier, his military secretary, Peter Stephen du Ponceau, and 2 other companions, reached Portsmouth, New Hampshire on December 1, 1777, where they were almost arrested for being British because Steuben had mistakenly outfitted them in red uniforms. They were extravagantly entertained in Boston. On February 5, 1778, Steuben and his party arrived in York, Pennsylvania, where the Continental Congress had relocated after being ousted from Philadelphia by the British advance. Their arrangements were made for Steuben to be paid following the successful completion of the war according to his contributions. He arrived at Valley Forge on February 23, 1778, and reported for duty as a volunteer. One soldier's first impression of the Baron was of the ancient fabled god of war. He seemed to me a perfect personification of Mars. The trappings of his horse, the enormous holsters of his pistols, his large size, and his strikingly martial aspect, all seemed to favor the idea. He turned the volunteers into a great army. Inspector General Washington appointed Steuben as temporary Inspector General. He went out into the camp to talk with the officers and men, inspect the huts, and scrutinize their equipment. Steuben established standards of sanitation and camp layouts that would still be standard a century and a half later. There had previously been no set arrangement of tents and huts. Men relieved themselves where they wished, and when an animal died, it was stripped of its meat and the rest was left to rot where it lay. Steuben laid out a plan to have rows for command officers and enlisted men. Kitchens and latrines were on opposite sides of the camp, with latrines down hillside. There was the familiar arrangement of company and regimental streets. On May 5, 1778, on General Washington's recommendation, Congress appointed Steuben Inspector General of the Army, with the rank and pay of Major General. Internal administration had been neglected, and no books had been kept either as to supplies, clothing or men. Steuben became aware of the administrative incompetence, graft, war profiteering that existed. He enforced the keeping of exact records and strict inspections. His inspections saved the army an estimated loss of 5,000 to 8,000 muskets. Training program: Steuben picked 120 men from various regiments to form an honor guard for General Washington, and used them to demonstrate military training to the rest of the troops. These men in turn trained other personnel at regimental and brigade levels. Steuben's eccentric personality greatly enhanced his mystique. In full military dress uniform, he twice a day trained the soldiers who, at this point, were themselves greatly lacking in proper clothing. As he could not speak or write English, Steuben originally wrote the drills in French, the military language of Europe at the time. His secretary, du Ponceau, then translated the drills from French into English. Colonel Alexander Hamilton and General Nathaniel Greene were of great help in assisting Steuben in drafting a training program for the army. The Baron's willingness and ability to work with the men, as well as his use of profanity, made him popular among the soldiers. It is here he met his reputed future lover, Captain Benjamin Walker. Upon meeting Walker for the first time, he exclaimed, "If I had seen an angel from heaven, I should not have more rejoiced." Within weeks, Walker was Steuben's aide-de-camp. Steuben introduced a system of progressive training, beginning with the school of the soldier, with and without arms, and going through the school of the regiment. This corrected the previous policy of simply assigning personnel to regiments. Each company commander was made responsible for the training of new men, but actual instruction was done by sergeants specifically selected for being the best obtainable. In the earlier part of the war, Americans used the bayonet mostly as a cooking skewer tool rather than as a fighting instrument. Steuben's introduction of effective bayonet charges became crucial. In the Battle of Stony Point, American soldiers attacked with unloaded muskets and won the battle solely on Steuben's bayonet training. The first results of Steuben's training were in evidence at the Battle of Baron Hill, May 20, 1778, and then again at the Battle of Monmouth in June 1778. Steuben, by then serving in Washington's headquarters, was the first to determine the enemy was heading for Monmouth. During the winter of 1778 to 1779, Steuben prepared regulations for the order and discipline of the troops of the United States, commonly known as the Blue Book. Its basis was the training plan he had devised at Valley Forge. It was used by the United States Army until 1814, and affected American drills and tactics until the Mexican War of 1846. Southern Campaign. In 1780, Steuben sat on the court-martial of the British Army officer Major John Andre, captured and charged with espionage in conjunction with the defection of General Benedict Arnold. He later traveled with Nathaniel Greene, the new commander of the Southern Campaign. He quartered in Virginia since the American supplies and soldiers would be provided to the army from there. Steuben would help in the defense of Virginia with approximately 1,000 militia fighting a delaying action in the Battle of Blandford. During the spring of 1781, he aided Greene in the campaign in the South, culminating in the delivery of 450 Virginia Continentals to Lafayette, Indiana, June. He was forced to take sick leave, rejoining the army for the final campaign at Yorktown, where his role was as commander of one of the 3 divisions of Washington's troops. In 1783, General von Steuben joined General Knox at Vales Gate, near West Point. In the fall of 1782 and in early 1783 moved to the Verplanck homestead at Mount Julian, across the Hudson River from Washington's headquarters in Newborough. Steuben gave assistance to Washington in demobilizing the army in 1783 as well as aiding in the defense plan of the new nation. In May 1783, Steuben presided over the founding of the Society of the Cincinnati. He was discharged from the military with honor on March 24, 1784. Final years. Steuben became an American citizen by act of the Pennsylvania legislature in March 1784. With the war over, Steuben resigned from service and first settled with his longtime companion, William North, for whom he created a special room at his retreat he called the Louvre on Manhattan Island, where he became a prominent figure and elder in the German Reformed Church. However, even with the new Congress giving him large sums of money, he still managed to become largely indebted. In 1790, Congress awarded him a pension of $2,500 a year, which he kept until his death. On December 23, 1783, the state of New Jersey presented him with the use of an estate in Bergen County now known as Steuben House, which had been confiscated from Loyalist Jan Zabriskie in 1781. Located in the formerly strategic New Bridge Landing, the estate included a grist mill and about 40 acres of land. Legislators initially conditioned the grant, requiring Steuben to hold, occupy and enjoy the said estate in person, and not by tenant. Gen. Philemon Dickinson of the New Jersey militia informed the Baron of this gift and responded to his inquiries that there are on the premises an exceeding good house, an excellent barn, together with many useful outbuildings, all of which I'm told want some repairs. There is a grist mill, a good orchard, some meadow ground, and plenty of wood. The distance from New York by land 15 miles, but you may keep a boat and go from your own door to New York by water. Oysters, fish and wild fowl in abundance. Possession will be given to you in the spring, when you will take a view of the premises. Von Steuben spent considerable sums to repair wartime damages to the house and restore its commercial operations under former aide Walker. On September 5, 1788, the New Jersey legislature gave Baron von Steuben full title to the former Zabriskie estate. A month later, recognizing his financial embarrassment, Steuben wrote another former aide-de-camp and companion, William North, recognizing the Jersey estate must and is to be sold. Walker is my administrator. All debts are to be paid out of it. On November 6, 1788, Steuben again wrote North, noting, my Jersey estate is advertised but not yet sold. For this Walker shall immediately pay to you the money you so generously lend me, and all my debts in New York will be paid. I support my present poverty with more heroism than I expected. All clubs and parties are announced. I seldom leave the house. Steuben eventually sold the New Jersey property to a son of the previous owner, and it remained in the Zabriskie family until 1909. It is the only remaining 18th-century building that von Steuben owned. Von Steuben moved upstate and settled in Oneida County on a small estate in the vicinity of Rome, on land granted to him for his military service and where he had spent some years. He was later appointed a regent for what evolved into the University of the State of New York. Death. Von Steuben died on November 28, 1794, and was buried in a grove at what became the Steuben Memorial State Historic Site in a town named Steuben, New York. Steuben did not marry and had no children. He did not much care for his European relatives. Thus, he left his estate to his companions and aides-de-camp, Captains Benjamin Walker and William North, with whom he had had an extraordinarily intense emotional relationship, treating them as surrogate sons. Legacy. Generally, von Steuben Day takes place in September in many cities throughout the United States. It is often considered the German-American event of the year. Participants march, dance, wear German costumes and play German music, and the event is attended by millions of people. The German-American Steuben Parade is held annually in September in New York City. It is one of the largest parades in the city and is traditionally followed by an Oktoberfest in Central Park as well as celebrations in Yorkville, Manhattan, a German section of New York City. The German-American Steuben Parade has been taking place since 1958. Chicago also hosts a von Steuben Day Parade, which is featured in the American movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Philadelphia hosts a smaller Steuben Parade in the northeast section of the city. The Steuben Society was founded in 1919 as an educational, fraternal, and patriotic organization of American citizens of German background. In the difficult post-World War I years, the society helped the German-American community to reorganize. It is now one of the largest organizations for Americans of German extraction. A warship, a submarine, and an ocean liner were named in von Steuben's honor. In World War I, the captured German ship SS Kronprinz Wilhelm was renamed as US von Steuben, and in World War II there was the Dampfschiff General von Steuben, an ill-fated German luxury passenger ship which was turned into an armed transport ship during the war. During the Cold War, the U.S. Navy submarine US von Steuben was named for him. Several locations in the United States are also named Steuben, most of them in his honor. Examples include Steuben County, New York, Steuben County, Indiana, and the city of Steubenville, Ohio. Several buildings are named for Steuben, among them von Steuben Metropolitan Science Center in Chicago, Illinois, as well as one of the cadet barracks buildings at Valley Forge Military Academy and College. Von Steuben was one of 4 European military leaders who assisted the American cause during the Revolution and was honored with a statue in Lafayette Square, just north of the White House, in Washington, D.C. The statue by Albert Jagers was dedicated in 1910. A copy was dedicated in Potsdam, Germany in 1911 and destroyed during World War II. A new cast was given in honor of German-American friendship in 1987 and to celebrate the 750th anniversary of the founding of Berlin. It was installed in the Dahlem district, in what had been the American sector of the formerly divided city. Additional casts are in Potsdam and in Steuben's hometown of Magdeburg. Statues of Steuben by J. Otto Schweizer can be found in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania and Utica, New York, in addition to an equestrian statue by Schweizer in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A bust of Steuben is in the garden of the German Embassy in Washington, D.C. The Steuben House, presented to Steuben as a gift for his services in the Continental Army, is located at New Bridge Landing in River Edge, New Jersey. The house and surrounding farmland were seized in 1781 from a Loyalist family. The house looks much as it did after Steuben renovated it. The state of New Jersey took possession of the historic mansion and 1 acre of ground for $9,000 on June 27, 1928. It was opened as a public museum in September 1939. The Bergen County Historical Society opens the building for special events. It is under the jurisdiction of the historic New Bridge Landing Park Commission. Other tributes include Steuben Field, the stadium of the Hamilton College football team. Von Steuben, acting as Alexander Hamilton's surrogate, laid the cornerstone of the school. Upon graduating, all Hamilton's seniors receive as a gift from the college a cane with a tricorn hat at its top in reference to von Steuben. The various depictions of Steuben in popular media include portrayals by Niemau Passoff in the 1979 U.S. TV miniseries The Rebels, Kurt Knudsen in the 1984 TV miniseries George Washington, being voiced by Austrian-American American Arnold Schwarzenegger in the animated series Liberty's Kids, and by David Cross on the Philadelphia episode of Drunk History. In 2007, a popular documentary DVD was released by Lionheart Filmworks and director Kevin Hirschberger titled Von Steuben's Continentals, the First American Army. The 60-minute live-action documentary details the life, uniforms, camp life, food, weapons, equipment and drill of the Continental soldiers 1775 to 1781, as taught and developed by Baron von Steuben.